Alright guys, hey, welcome back to Apollo Justice. Court will now reconvene. Defense attorney Christoph Gavin, you will pass. Please take the stand. Now then, if you would, Mr. Payne.
Yes, Your Honor. Will the witness state his name and occupation?
In this farce necessary, Your Honor. Believe me, for stranger things have gone in this courtroom.
Fine, I'll play along.
First, one thing we need to have made clear. How did you know about the secret beneath the victim's hat? By secret, I'm guessing he means the fact that Mr. Smith was bald. Forgive my curiosity, but what about this fellow head? Your Honor seems to have an indirect interest in it. I wouldn't call it indirect, whatever, Mr. Gavin. Mr. Wright? What are you doing, Mr. Wright? Whoa, things sure look different from the other side, you know? What I mean, Apollo? Speaking of looking from the other side, let's consider something for a second. The victim wore a hat all night, never once taking it off except for that one time. That's one time being the instant he was hit. Oh! When Mr. Wright returned from reporting to the crime, the hat was laying on the floor. Mr. Wright picked it up on the victim's head and placed it on him. In other words, in order to have seen Mr. Smith's bald head, you would have to be at the scene of the crime at the same time of the crime. In other words, you have to be the real killer. Is that what you're trying to say? Not bad, Apollo. Mr. Gavin? I'm afraid that I have been entirely honest with the court.
What?
Oh, I assure you, I had a noblest of instant intentions. I did it all to protect my client, Mr. Wright. Yet, I'm afraid in the current situation, I see the reason to hide anything. Very well. Allow me to tell you the truth of what happened that night. Finally, you may begin your testimony. Tell us, how were you involved with the events the fatal night? Went down to the basement and peeked through the window and hid. Conclusion. For better or worse, I missed the actual moment of the deed. Mr. Gavin, may I remind you that you're on Mr. Wright's defense attorney. Your testimony is clearly disadvantage of your client. What else can I say? I'm standing on the witness's stand after all. So you are Mr. Gavin. And you have to testify as you did. You had to tell them you saw the scene of the crime through the little window. Mr. Wright? You had to say that. Because that was the only probability, probable of the window of the opportunity, Apollo. Oh. I butchered that. Mr. Wright, the defense will do the cross-examination, not the defendant. Mr. Justice, are you prepared? Excuse me. Yes, Your Honor. I can't believe I'm going up against Mr. Gavin. This trial's getting weirder and weirder. That fateful night. Excuse me. Okay, I'm back. The rage that I sensed in that night troubled me, so I returned to the club. That man, you mean Mr. Smith. He was different from the other customers. His aura, shall we say. I knew he was a serious poker player, but that was more than that.
So then, you knew then the nature of the client's job?
Of course. But I also knew he had engaged in gambling, which would be illegal. Well, that makes sense that he knew that. They were friends, after all. Worried for my friend, I returned to the club. You see, I feared this Mr. Smith might be someone coming to settle an old score. I see. What happened then? The little window? You mean the one that you used to keep watch of the up of the stairs? Yes, a relic of the ancient past. The black market used to use this, I believe. Why did you go through the trouble of peeking through the window? Would it have been easier to just open the door and go in the room? I didn't want to upset Wright, you see. Upset Mr. Wright? Yes. What if my fears have been unfounded? I'd be walking in the other match bad form, to say the least. So far even he's saying makes sense. It must have been right after the murder took place. How did you know it was right after the murder? Really, no need to shout justice. I was just getting to that part in my testimony. There he is, the coolest defense in the West. We know and love. Even though when you're standing up there on the witness stand, some things never change. I was afraid you'd change too, right? But you haven't. You and that overbearing personality of yours. With friends like these, who needs enemies? The victim was dead, as he would appears in the photo. By photo, you mean the second photograph in the crime scene? Precisely. You see, he wasn't wearing his hat then. I saw his head when he was dead. And then Mr. Wright came along and placed the hat.
Can you describe the scene of the crime for us?
The bald-headed, unconscious girl and Mr. Wright holding a bottle. Those were the only three at the scene of the crime? Yes, as far as I saw, at least.
Then we're back where we started. The killer was the defendant, Phoenix Wright, who also could have been. But why don't you talk to the police?
2 reasons. First, I didn't actually witness the very moment of the crime. Second, my office was asked to defend Mr. Wright. Even after seeing what I had seen, I couldn't abandon my friend. There must have been someone else there at the moment of the crime. Justice, as I said, I saw no one, not a soul. But there goes against what Mr. Wright said. Ah yes, this mysterious fourth person. Who would conventionally be the real killer, I suppose. Glad to see we agree, Mr. Wright. Mr. Gavin. Let me pose the question then. Tell me, what possible reason did the real killer have to swap cards for the victim's hand? Perhaps you can show us the reason why such a thing would be necessary. How long can I show something I can't find myself? Remember, Apollo, the card that was swapped out in the other 5th ace. The 5th ace, right. Well, Mr. Justice, the question is of why the killer would swap out the card have been relieved. Can you point out the reason? Sure. It's now or never. The defense would like to present evidence to the court. Evidence showing the reason why the card was swapped. Then go ahead. Oh, then go ahead, present your reason, Justice, Mr. Justice. Why would the killer take the fifth face? My reason is, this.
Isn't that an ace?
Why? Isn't that blood on it? Right next to the spade? What?
This is insane. Why would I wasn't told about this? Why?
Could this be the missing fifth ace? Inconceivable. How could you? What are you doing with that card? Well, that's the thing. Why is Mr. Gavin so upset? It's just a fishy card from some fishy girl. Oh, that card, it's mine. This is why I picked it up at the Borscht Bull Club that night of the murder had occurred. I gave it to my daughter. Cards are her stop and trade after all. Excuse me, I'm sorry. No, it's impossible. And unacceptable. The court cannot accept this as evidence. It is fraud. A fraud? How could you be so sure? What? I would think the only person could claim it was fraud would be the one who took the real card from the killer at the scene. The real killer. Allow me to elaborate. What this trace of blood was the reason.
The reason for
the killer to take the card from the scene of the crime. Where are you going with this? Take another look at the photo. It looks like the victim's head. At the moment of the crime, his hat fell to the floor, and a trickle of blood ran from the forehead down from the back of his head. Couldn't a drop of blood have fallen onto the card? I suppose. The killer took the card and hid the blood. Regardless, the evidence is non-permissible. Permissible? Whatever. Oh? Right. Regardless of how you wasted the last 7 years, you used to be a lawyer. You know what this is serious crime. To conceal evidence. Oh, we can discuss that, the finer points of our legal system later. What's more important now is that I've answered your question. What are you talking about? You wanted to know why the killer would have taken the card from the crime scene. And now, I've told you. I don't know why he was doing that. The one drop of blood would have been decisive evidence, you see. This is Baseless conjecture. Baseless. Oh, I assure you, it's quite based. What? It is amazing, really, how a single drop of blood on a single card can lead us to the truth. It's quite simple. Well, Apollo? Yes? Try picturing the scene of the crime. Try picturing the scene of the crime in your head. The body of the luckless victim was found in the poker table, and the killer swapped card out. There was a single card with a drop of blood on the victim's head. Given this, there is one decisive problem with the scene. Well, what is it? Let's keep this simple, shall we? Given that there was a drop of blood on the card, whose position in the diagram doesn't fit? The victims, the killers, the witness, the second witness? Well, isn't the victim's position that's the problem? I don't follow your logic here, Mr. Justice. Well, look at the victim struck on the head, sending him back of his chair. You think the blood would fall behind the body, not onto the table in front of him. Oh! Take a look at this photo again. If he bled into the position, the blood would fall on the floor, not on the card. Why, that's right. So, does this mean? Indirectly, incisively, we are sitting in a swivel? Whatever chair. Something chairs. I'm sorry I butchered it. Blech. Oh man, I don't know. Apollo, try turning the chair around. The chair was facing the other way. It would have been. So we have to assume that the victim's chair was facing the other from the table. When Mr. Wright returned from informing the police which way of the chair was facing, when I came back, the room and body was facing the scene of the photo. That would mean the killer turned the chair back around. Let's take the next step. Look at the diagram once more. We now know the victim was facing away from the table at the time of the murder. But this creates another significant contradiction. Again? Let's test your reasoning skills again, shall we? Apollo, those locations on this diagram contradicts our new understanding of this crime. The victim, the killer, the witness, the second witness. Whose location creates contradiction with the victim's facing. The victim was struck from the front, correct? Indeed. Well, wouldn't it be hard to the killer to hit him from the front? Sitting where he is indirectly currently it where indicator currently is. I would think he'd be quite hard, yes.
Yes, but what are you saying makes no sense. But why would the victim suddenly turn and face the wall in the middle of the game?
Sorry guys, I keep burping. The reason will come to light.
What?
There's something in the diagram that makes far less sense, actually. Look again at the diagram. Apollo, if the victim was struck while he was sitting as shown here, where would his assailant be standing? Try marking it on the diagram. But there's no room to put a mark where the killer would be. Don't worry, let's think it through and see where we can find. We know the victim was facing towards the wall at the time of the crime. That's the only thing we know for sure. Well, try to forget about everything else. Where would the killer be standing to strike our victim in front? Well, I guess the killer would have to be, here. Anything to say, Mr. Justice? Sorry? Shut up. Give me a chance. Wait, what? Hold on, guys. I need to save. Just to be safe. The killer had to be standing, here. I thought I was onto something there too.
I hardly need to point out the standing there would be impossible. The victim is facing a solid cupboard. Or have you been claiming the killer climbed through the cupboard and hit him from above?
It's simple logic, really. If he was the only place the killer could have been standing, then that means that the very moment of the crime. Wait, I know. At the moment of the crime, the cupboard wasn't there. What's this now? I mean, that's the only reason, the explanation, right, Mr. Gavin? Your Honor, I have a suggestion for you, for the defense. We should arrange to examine the cupboard in the in the hideout immediately. Bailiff, send the defense team. Send the team to the crime scene immediately. Have them try to move the cupboard. Ah, Your Honor. What? What? There's one more thing your men should look for. Please give this to the bailiff. Yes. Of course. You do belong in this courtroom after all, Mr. Wright. I do my best. But let's forge ahead here, shall we? While we wait. Look at the diagram once again. It's been changed. If the killer was standing here in the time of the crime, then the cupboard wasn't here, which means, Apollo, try moving the cupboard. Thank you. As you can see, the cupboard was the problem at the time of the murder. It's have been shown here. Now everything is in place to reconstruct the moment of the crime. Oh my. What's this? Oh, what is it now? Look at the diagram of the crime scene once more. It appears that we found yet another contradiction. What I believe to be the final contradiction, in fact. Dang. Nothing. Notice something, Apollo? Our line of deduction is rapidly approaching. It is a logical conclusion. Now then, Mr. Justice, please point out to the new contradiction in blah. Is the victim, the killer, the witness, the second witness? Which indicator in this diagram contradicts of what we know of the crime? The indicator that doesn't make sense here is the killer. Oh, really? Yeah, really. Well, maybe really. It would have been behoove me. The defense would really be sure of wasting valuable time. Oh, I died. Be right back, guys.
Okay, I'm back.
About this cupboard. Are we all okay with assuming it was moved? Sure, why not? Well, if it was, something really doesn't fit. If the cupboard was moved completely, covered up, if the cupboard would completely cover up the window to the stairs. That's right. Someone standing outside would be able to see it. Someone like Mr. Gavin. What did you say? Oh, the coolest defense in the West, losing his cool. Nah. Don't expect me to play along with your little game, right? It's only a game until someone gets killed, Mr. Gavin. And someone was, while the window to the room was blocked by the cupboard. So, Mr. Gavin, perhaps you would like to explain to the court exactly where did you witness the crime scene from? Excuse me, Your Honor. Order. The court will. This is the court of law. We have order. We just received word from the investigation team as the Borch Bull Club. They examined the cupboard in the hideout, Your Honor. Oh, what did you find? Well, Your Honor, it turns out there's a secret passage behind it. What? Yes, I believe I mentioned something sort before. Is there one thing that tricks to the room many of our regulars know about? I do remember him saying something about that now that we mention it. A secret passage in a handy thing to have when you're engaged in illegal going-ons. Never know, you might need to duck away from the eyes of the law. So the room has a secret passage? Where does it go? The other side connects to the restaurant above. The underworld bosses get away from the cops and enjoy the cold bowl of borsch in no doubt, just like our killer. You see where the line of simple deductive reasoning has led us, Apollo? I see it, but I don't believe it. That the girl wasn't kidding when she said that I needed this trump card, at least the last hand. At the time of the murder, the window was blocked, and the victim's hat was off his head for a few minutes between Smith's murder and Mr. Wright returned from calling the cops. In other words, the only place anyone could have seen the victim's bald head was from inside the hideout. Well, Mr. Gavin, come on, say something. Dare I ask what really happened that night? Actually, I think we could probably figure that out ourselves at this point. That night, for whatever reason, our killer had a date with Mr. Smith. A date with destiny. There, he crouched hidden in the secret passageway behind the cupboard, holding his breath, waiting for just the right moment. Then the chance came, and he took it. What? Why did you do that? Wait, Miss Olga Orley was cut cold, struck by Mr. Smith. But the time was soon come when Mr. Wright was upstairs to call the cops, leaving Mr. Shady Smith alone in the hideout with the unconscious dealer. And then the killer stepped out in front of the secret passage into the hideout. The victim, the cupboard sliding inside. He wheeled his chair and bang. After the deed was done, the criminal must have seen the blood of the card. He would have been of the course, realized that he needed to destroy the evidence. The single spot blood told the whole story of the crime. Too bad for him, he didn't linger any longer in the hideout that night. If he had, he might have been noticed the card of LaRue on the floor. And that the fact that they were all red. Well, it seems this trial has taken yet another turn. I'm truly sorry I had to see this day come, Mr. Gavin. Mr. Gavin? Mr. Payne!
Yes, Your Honor.
The prosecution will continue the investigation for Mr. Phoenix Wright, the defendant, hereby cleared by all suspicion. Yeah. Believe me when I say that I don't believe this is happening, Mr. Gavin. But I'm afraid the circumstances for call for me to issue a warrant for your arrest immediately. Oh, no need to apologize. I rather enjoy myself. It's not every day you get to witness a legendary attorney's dirty tactics firsthand. Your point, Mr. Gavin? Frankly, Your Honor, I'm shocked and shooketh. The person of your caliber would be taken in such a low-grade parloy trick. Excuse me? The defendant is cleared of all suspicion. This is hardly the time for jokes, Your Honor. Mr. Wright hasn't proven anyone's guilty or innocence here. What he has done is use the legal evidence to put the blame on someone else. And just not anyone else but me, his own defense attorney. Legal evidence? Let me ask you, Mr. Gavin, is there still any reason to present to suspect me of wrongdoing? Of course, this bottle, for instance. The bottle of grape juice Mr. Wright was drinking? How do you intend to explain away the fingerprints of the murder weapon? It's not any fingerprints. Am I right, Mr. Payne?
Actually, yes. The fingerprints of the bottle were upside down.
I recall being an issue earlier. And the court of this case demands an explanation. I can think of only one reason why would a bottle be upside down, and that would be hit someone in the bottom of the bottle. Well, Your Honor. I see. The caught fish squirms to the last. Well, Paulo? Yes? Your boss seems awfully concerned about this bottle still, but I'm sure you can come up with a suitable explanation just like that. Yeah, just like what? Why would anyone grab a bottle upside down the other than the goal? Don't let him trick you into thinking his explanations is the only legitimate one. There is another? Take another look at the court record. I believe you will find the simple answer where the plain sight is. How about you just tell me? It would be hasty to deliver a verdict on unanswered questions, indeed. Well, Mr. Justice... Don't worry, Justice. Perhaps the defense would like to enlighten the court. What evidence do you think you have to explain the fingerprints of the bottle? I'm saving because... It's actually easier than to show you than explain, Your Honor. Place the bottle on the floor next to the chair. Excuse me? On the floor? Yes, now reach down and pick it up without getting out of your chair. See? You naturally go pick it up the bottle by its neck. With your fingers upside down. Look at this photograph taken at the night of the murder. The defendant, Mr. Wright, sat here, playing piano, bottle of grape juice on the floor, of the side of the piano bench. He would have naturally picked up the bottle upside down several times. Oh, I can't believe it was just that simple. Recall our dinner night evening, Christoph. I was drinking my usual juice then, too. Basically, you used the bottle to the table to do the deed. Then you must have remembered. So you went to pick up one of the bottles from under the piano and switched the bottles. You took Mr. Wright's bottle and made it look like the murder weapon. Order! 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 What do you have to say for the charges, Mr. Gavin? Fascinating. So the legendary attorney framed tactic of misdirection? What? You claim that I switched the bottle? Where's your proof? Proof? Well, that's, as I thought, more baseless conjecture. I'm afraid your bottle of proof is quite empty. I wouldn't be so sure about that, Your Honor. When you entitled the investigation of the hideout earlier, do you recall the request of the additional investigation? Oh, yes. I have your memo about that here. Retrieve the bottle from under the piano at the Borscht Bowl Club. And here is one of the bottles in question. What are you going to do? Dust that for fingerprints too? I would be surprised anywhere on that, but his. Mr. Gavin probably would make that such a novice mistake, true. But the bottle won't bear its trace of anything. Say, Apollo. Yes? Why don't you go ahead and examine that bottle? But why? Just humor me. Mr. Get Right? The bottle will solve this case once and for all. What? That's some bottle? There's something inside the bottle. What's this? The card. It can't be. Recall the unpleasant woman testimony for the moment? Mrs. Olga Orley? Yes, our little swindling devotka.
That night, I planted the card like I was supposed to. And Wright lost that last hand, just like he was supposed to. Then Smith searched him. But then, the planted card was gone. The trap failed. Wait, this isn't... You're telling me that this is the planted card you disposed of? One that you mentioned, that this little piece of testimony? I happened to put my hand in my pocket and found a card. Yes, I snuck a peek and found it was the 5 of hearts. I hid the feeling something might happen, so I dispose of the card before the game. Dispose? Where? There was an empty bottle of grape juice I had behind drinking the night behind me. I threw the card inside the bottle. The 5 of hearts. This is the final card. The bottles were swapped. And the only one who could have done that, the 4th person at the club that night. You, Mr. Christoph Gavin. That is all. Is this your idea of revenge, Phoenix Wright? Revenge? Revenge for the events that took away your attorney's badge 7 years ago? My past is like my logic, straight and true. Nothing changed. All I did was point out a finger of justice in the proper direction. Fine. I'm glad we could have this little tete-a-tete, right? I don't know, I butchered that. This is insane! And what about me? Don't I get to prosecute anyone?
I believe this time has finally come to the end of the trial. Mr. Payne, do you have the report for us on Christoph Gavin?
He admitted everything. We're processing his arrest now.
I see. Still, one has wondered, why would he do such a thing? He didn't even have a connection to the victim, did he?
None that we know of.
Mr. Wright, you have anything to add?
I'm afraid I can't shed any more light on the matter.
About the victim, Mr. Shady Smith. His occupation was listed as traveler. Odd profession, to be sure. And that's all we know about him.
I'll arrange a follow-up investigation, Your Honor.
Good. Mr. Wright.
Yes?
7 years, and you still haven't lost your touch.
Christoph Gavin was the man with much significance for me, both as a friend and a lawyer.
He was extremely talented, to be sure.
I needed to do two things before I could confront him. The first was the place where no injustice would be tolerated in the courtroom. The second was the man who would tolerate no injustice. And that would be the defense attorney, you, Apollo. Me? A dark time is coming for our legal system. A twisting of justice brought by our very own court system. We have to see it right, set it right. Mr. Wright? Our work lies ahead of us, and for one, I am looking forward to it.
Well then, this seems to be a good time to announce the verdict. The court finds the defendant, Mr. Phoenix Wright,
not guilty!
Oh my god, so long, oh my god. The court is now adjourned.
Thanks, Apollo. You came through just like I thought you would. I'm pretty sure I didn't do anything there. It was you who concerned Mr. No, the killer. I couldn't have done it by myself. You sensed it too today, didn't you? Your ability. Ability? Yes, it's a sensitive I lack. You come to understand it soon enough. Wait, I wonder what he means. I have one question for the witness then. You say the moment the defendant hit the victim. Is this true? Of course it is. What's this weird vibe I'm getting? What was that, Mr. Wright? You'll have to find out and answer the question yourself. To the answer, right. Today was full of questions, without answers, most of them about Mr. Gavin. What possible reason could have been had to commit murder? Perhaps you'll learn that in the days to come. What? You don't know, do you? The locket is the key. Oh, that reminds me. I met this girl whose picture in your locket. Your daughter, right? That's right. She's my daughter. You know where you were, right? About the locket? I took this off his neck the night he died, but it looks like our dear Russian scam artist saw me. So the truth is, the locket really did
did belong to him. Wait, about the that's perjury. You testified what you said the locket is yours. I said no such thing, actually. I merely said that it was a locket with my daughter's picture inside. A subtle indentation, and whatever, but none of less. Ah, shut up. Wait, then why? Why would the victim be wearing a locket with the picture of your daughter inside it? Sometimes the straightest path to the truth isn't the best one given time. You're still getting started with your career. Speaking of which, I may be out of a job. I have to look for I work for Gavin's law office, after all. I still can't believe I just saw Mr. Gavin led to the handcuffs. Apollo? Yeah? How about coming work for me? You mean at the Miss Bright & Co. law offices? I mean, there's not even a single attorney in my generation that doesn't know it. I can't imagine that it'd be true, but... Wait, but you're not a... I turned my badge, yes, in, but I'm not an attorney anymore. That incident 7 years ago, the legendary trial, and that middle of it all was one man, Phoenix Wright. The case reached its sad conclusion, and he left law for good. Have you ever thought about coming back to the court? I'm not qualified to stand in court of law, I'm afraid. Didn't you notice in today's trial, there was a single piece of forged evidence? Forged evidence? What are you talking about? I'm talking about the evidence that should have existed, a naughty magician's trick. One piece of evidence struck and odd. Oh, true. This seems well to be perfect. You mean this, don't you? I got this from your daughter, right? Yes, the card you could have been found at the crime scene. Why the killer took it with him when he left. Leaving the wrong card in the wrong place, luckily for us. I don't feel like it. Yes, I forged this card. One look at the crime scene should have told you it wasn't real. Yeah, I don't know. It's your story here on now, Apollo. I can help you turn to the next page. My office address, drop in if you like. Mr. Wright? Oh, and about your uppercut. Try yelling, "Take that!" next time I find your package a little more punch. And Apollo, thanks for today. I had a good time. And with that, Mr. Wright walked out of the door, and that's how my first trial ended. A lot of mysteries went unsolved, and that time I had no idea they were related. And every mystery of that day connected by a single thread of logic. I find that out soon enough. My name's Apollo Justice, attorney of law, and this is how my story begins.